Shashank Srivastava joins us, Senior Executive Officer with Maruti, and we're going to be talking about a range of topics. But every time I meet Shashank, it's a habit now. I start talking about breakfast, bread, butter, jam. So Shashank, what was
We could even talk about Filmfare Awards, by the way. He was right there in the first row.
Oh, I missed that. I missed that. No, I missed that completely. Yeah. So I think Aisha wants to start with Filmfare Awards. I'll leave the breakfast menu for some other time, Shashank.
Why don't you talk of parathas also?
So Shashank, our obvious question, अब वो जो मारुति में हम बात करते हैं, that is the last time when we spoke, you said, look, the bread is toasted and the butter is not missing. So is the bread, butter and cheese in place now for
Parathas
Maruti?
with butter.
Parathas and butter.
Parathas are there. I think the butter, it depends on how much you want to put, depending on what kind of paratha it is. But essentially, there are some models where you have a long waiting list where you see very little of discounts, and that is good for the overall. They are particularly the larger cars. And then in the smaller cars, you still have an issue where the availability is much better. Although I would say in volume terms, those cars are also doing very well.
Just to do a channel check here, when we spoke to several car dealers yesterday and we wanted to assess and understand that how this entire festival season demand has been, Gudi Padwa in Maharashtra, a lot of festival demand which typically happens in South because of Navratra and other events. We get a sense that this time around it's not been a great festival season. Is that true?
Yeah, I would say, of course, the numbers still to come. Typically, the month-end figure, towards the month-end, the retails climbs up every month, irrespective of whether it is auspicious period or not. The auspicious period, of course, starting only recently. So I would expect a lot of retails still to happen by March end. The estimate in the industry is that it would be in the range of about 342 to 345,000, the total retails. And the wholesale is expected to be around that 330 to 335,000 range. These are by themselves a good number because they are a growth over last year, 3% for wholesale, estimates 2% over last year for retails. But yes, you are right. There is a sense in terms of the other parameters of bookings and inquiries that there seems to be a leveling off after some great quarters of consistent demand patterns.
You have already intimated that from 2023 April, which is next month, there will be a price hike. Yeah. You are increasing prices when commodity prices are down. Why is that? Shouldn't it be the other way around?
Listen, if you compare the commodity prices, what they were 2 years back, they're still very, very high. So I'll give you an example. Steel, for example, 2 years back was 38 rupees a kg. I'm talking of automotive steel. It went up to 84. It has come down to, I think, around between 66 to 68 rupees a kg. So you might say that, it has come down. But actually, when you compare it with 2 years back, it's almost double. The same goes for copper, was $5,200 2 years back. It went up to $10,400. Now it's still around the $9,200, $9,300 mark. Same goes for aluminium and even the rare metals. So the thing is that while we have had price hikes in the past 1.5 years, but they have been very, very small. And the reason is for those small price hikes were because during the COVID period, manufacturers, including Maruti Suzuki, we were not sure how much would be the demand bounce back. As market leaders, we are very conscious of our responsibility that we are also in some sense responsible for the overall demand. And therefore, the increases in the prices that you saw were not enough to cover the commodity prices. That is the reason why still and that's the reason the profitability the last 2 years have actually come down for OEMs. The other factor is the regulatory requirements which are changing from 1st April. The RD and the OBD2 norms means that there will be a spec changes in the engine of the cars, and that also is an additional cost. So these are the two main reasons why we have decided to increase the prices from April.
Right. So, Shashank, I mean, we don't want to get this wrong. Are you saying that even with the RDE norm implementation, there are going to be no more price hikes, at least in the offing from Maruti? Because a couple of your peers have already, hinted at a price hike come next month.
So we have said that in April we will increase the prices. I mean, that's what we filed in the stock exchange yesterday. So there will be a price hike. Only thing is that the price hikes will be different across models, because it depends on what type of changes you require for meeting those RD norms. And remember, a lot of the models of Maruti Suzuki, we have already made those changes. And in fact, only a few models remain for us to convert to the new specs to meet the RD norms.
Okay, so just to understand then, in light of all of this, you spoke about the price hike, the RDE norms, etc. Any implication on what the margin picture could look like for the company?
Of course, I'll not be able to give you a forward estimate of what the margins would be. Obviously, if the cost structure as of now remains same, increase in prices theoretically lead to a better margin. But it all depends on how the costs move. And that includes obviously the material cost, which is about 75 to 77% of the cost structure of any auto OEM.
I've had the pleasure of tracking Maruti for almost 20 years now, and almost 20 years in its listed avatar. So it's not for the first time commodity prices have gone higher. There is a cycle which is at play. But Maruti in 2-3 years always has managed to come back to its long-term margin average, which is in early double digit. So can I safely assume that maybe not in this quarter, maybe not in the coming quarter, maybe next 2 quarters, but ultimately Maruti will go back to its long-term margin average, which is in early double digit?
I'm probably not the best person to reply to this question. It obviously depends on the competitive scenario, the strength of our models, how they're doing in the market, and also the general scenario of economy. So, but you are right. The entire organization obviously wants to get back to a higher level of profitability.
From a pure stock market standpoint, investors, they always look at the product pipeline, the launch pipeline, because that in a sense always act as a near-term trigger to generate sales and momentum. What I understand is that for 2023, Maruti has one of the strongest and one of its highest launch pipeline. Right or wrong? True or false? You are the right person to answer this one. Margin one you avoided. This one you know the answer. I know it.
True, it's true that we have unveiled two very strong SUV products, the Jimny and the Fronx. We have had bookings, and we will start selling those vehicles sometime in April. The Fronx and Jimny together have got almost 40,000 bookings as of today. And that's a big foray that we have done into the SUV sector. The SUV segment is a largest segment now, and we were a little weak there. Our market share, there was only about 11.5% last year. So we do hope to become the number one SUV player in this financial year 23-24. And you are right, it is a very strong product pipeline that we have. We now have 16 brands in the PV industry, in the PV market, as against 14 that we had earlier. And going forward in this year also, you will see a lot of new product introductions from Maruti Suzuki.
I'm curious to understand what the SUV portfolio in particular is looking like. I mean, the response to Vitara, Brezza, and I stand corrected, I saw you at the Z Cine Awards. So I also want to know about Arena.
Yeah, so there you saw the hot and techie Brezzas. If I can get into that sales and marketing pitch, the hot and techie Brezza actually is was in February the highest selling SUV in the country. So it does around 15,000 numbers a month, which is pretty good. It's in the compact SUV space, which is the largest segment in the industry. And we have bolstered it with two new products, the Jimny and the Fronx, which come in the Nexa channel. And of course, the Grand Vitara, which we introduced in September last year, it's garnered more than 130,000 bookings. And we are selling almost. I mean, there is a long waiting list, and we are selling whatever is available. And that is a good sign for the next year as we try to become the number one SUV player in the country.
Okay, so just to conclude, one final thought. SUV market, whether it's urban SUV or luxury SUV, that now accounts for almost 35 to 40% of the new car sales. Is that
Actually, yeah.
no? Is that number right or wrong? Because that's the number which has come to us from Mahindra and Mahindra.
Actually, the SUV segment is now about 43% of the market. Out of which the compact SUV segment is about 22%, and about 19.5% is the mid SUV, where the Vitara and Creta and Seltos play, and about 1.3% is the premium SUV sector. So combined 22.5 plus 19.5 plus 1% is equal to 43%. That is what the total SUV market is.
It's above 40. What would be
Yeah.
the long-term implications of this big change in the passenger car market? Indian passenger car market, let's say, couple of years ago was dominated by entry car. Now it is dominated by SUV. SUV margins on an aggregate basis are much higher than what the entry level car margins are. If this is a major shift where 40% plus of the total new cars are being sold are in SUV, what would be the medium term implications of that for Maruti and for the industry?
Yeah, so you're right. Larger cars generally give higher margins, but I must say that it also depends on the level of competition that you have in that segment, even if the vehicle is large. But yes, as a general principle, larger cars give better margins. On the question of the lower end cars, there's still substantial part of the market. In fact, this year they will have a growth of 20%, the hatch market, and will end up something like a 13 lakh 60,000 volume, which is very large. It will be about 36% of the overall market against a 43% market for the SUV. So still very large segment, the small cars. And we are, of course, dominant in the small car and always been. Our market share there is 70% plus. But in SUV, as I mentioned, it's a challenge because we are not the number one player in SUV, but we intend to become the number one player in this year, 23-24.
All right. Shashank, really appreciate your time. So glad you could join us. And next time we have to meet in person and enjoy the breakfast rather than meeting online and talking about butter, toast, and paratha.
Paratha it will be. And it is your choice, aloo ka paratha or gobi ka paratha.
I like paneer ka paratha. You missed on that one.
Okay, so we'll try for that.
I appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us.